All right, 75% have voted on that one. It looks like a lot of you do not have auditing, so this will be real helpful for you today. Let me close that, share the results with you. Looks about 2/3 of you almost have no auditing at all, so this will be a really good session for you today. And again, just remember, if you don't get our emails for the training, it's going to be every Tuesday and every Thursday at 11 o'clock throughout 2011, which is awesome. We're actually calling this Expedition Denali. We're going to be doing an awful lot with the Microsoft product team as well, talking about Denali, and actually have them invited here to do some of the webinars. So it should be a really great year. All right, let me hide that, and we'll wait for Mike to get dialed back in. It's always better to work out the audio issues in the beginning of the webinar a couple minutes later than trying to deal with it in the middle. So thank you for your patience. Good time to grab a cup of coffee, hang out. And by the way, all the webinars still are recorded. They're up on our site, and you're welcome to view them for free. We try to get them up within 24 hours for you, so you can review them again. And also I want to point out, this is also another good one. The last webinar of last year, we had over 40 of you that wanted to contribute with your brand. We are going to get back to you. We didn't realize such a great response, but we're putting together a plan that can help everybody in the community that did respond positively to the survey get involved with us. So it'll be fun. Brian and I are working that up. So if you haven't heard from us, we're thinking of you. We're going to get that done for you. All right, we've got some questions here. Let's see. Hopefully I can answer them with you. All right. Any workshops for Seattle? Yes, we are working on that right now. It'll probably be in the September timeframe. We're also doing workshops on everything in the BI platform. So we have workshops today on SSIS. We're doing SSIS in Philadelphia, and we're doing SSIS in LA. But every city will probably be back, and we'll do an SSIS one and SSAS one, and we're pulling together a SharePoint BI one as well, and SSRS, so we'll be hitting the whole platform. Tampa. Great question, Diane. We can definitely hit Tampa, but we don't have one planned as yet. I will put that on the schedule and ask Microsoft for that. And the recording for the last webinar is not there. Yes, we realized that. There was a technical issue. We're trying to work with the service to see if we can still get the recording. So we'll get that up as soon as we can. In any workshops? Yep, for Milwaukee. Gina, good question. We are going to Waukesha. Is that close? I think it's fairly close to Milwaukee. We'll be in Waukesha at the Microsoft facility on, let's see here. Yep, that's the one. Yep, we'll be there. Orlando, Florida. Orlando, Kai, we're actually going to be in Orlando. Gina, I'll look at the schedule, and I'll have the schedule up for the end of the webinar here as soon as we hear back from Mike. Let me just make sure Mike's...
This is Mike.
Beautiful. It sounds great. Mike, I'm going to make you presenter.
Good.
They've been hearing a little too much from me by now. I'm sure they're tired of it. So we'll get forward with the SSIS troubleshooting with Mike right now. Mike, I'll make you presenter. I'll just stay on with you until we see your screen.
All right. 1 second. Sorry. I apologize, everyone, for the audio trouble there. The microphone wasn't working for some reason.
Indiana. I know, Belinda, we're doing something in St. Louis, and I think we are going to do something in Indiana. I will find out for you. England, Nicholas. We are working on England, and we should have an answer for England probably in the summertime. So, yep, we'll do that. And I'll let you go, Mike. It's got an awesome presentation for you technically, and talk to you soon. Thanks, Mike. It's up and running now. All right, Mike, and I can't hear you if you're talking, so I just want to make sure.
Thank you.
There you go. Now you're working. All right, up and running.
All right, let's get this going now. All right, sorry about the audio problems, everybody. Got a brand new headset. Obviously, my old headset's working better than my new one, so I'll have to figure that out. All right, so my name is Mike Davis. I work for Brian Knight here at Pragmatic Works in Jacksonville, Florida, and today I'm going to be talking about troubleshooting SSIS. So let's go ahead and get on with it. I am not big on slides. I like to do demos and show you guys stuff. I think that's the way you learn best. So I got a couple of slides, but not too many. And just a little bit about myself. I'm a senior business intelligence consultant here with Pragmatic Works. I've written a couple of books on business intelligence, and I'm also certified in business intelligence also. All right, enough about me. Let's get to the stuff you're here for. So we're going to talk about package errors today and talk about the data flow, talk about the errors you get inside of there, and we're going to talk about script errors also. And if we have time, we'll get to auditing based on the time constraints. So let's get right into it. So package errors. One of the things I see when I'm working with clients is they get an error on their package, and the first thing they do is they stop debugging and they double click on a package or on a task inside the package and start looking at it, start making changes. One of the things I see them avoid doing or not do is going into the execution control flow or the progress tab, depending on whether you're still in debug mode or not, and actually going through and looking through the errors and warnings that are in there. Now I can understand why they don't want to do this, because a lot of times it's very confusing looking at all that information inside of there. I'm going to try to make it simple for you and show you an easy way to parse through that information and make it a little easier to decipher what those error messages actually mean and find the error messages that actually mean something and not just all the junk that's built inside of there. We'll talk about the little symbols that show inside of there and talk about warnings also. So let's get right into that. Let me open up, I have a package here, and let me close this down. Sorry, I had this window open down here. I want to close that so it doesn't interfere. All right, so I have a package here, and I'm just going to go ahead and run it one time. You notice that before I run it, there's no tab over here next to the package explorer, no progress tab or execution results. But once you run a package once, I'll go ahead and execute it. You see we get a little progress tab that appears right here. Whenever you see a red box like this appear, the first thing you want to do is go right into that progress tab and see what that error is. Now you can stop debugging first if you want to, and that's just by going up top here and clicking on the stop debugging button here. I'll stop debugging, and that'll change the progress tab to say execution results, and that just shows the last execution, the same thing that was in the progress tab. Now if I execute the package again, then of course the execution results will then be the latest execution, not the one previous to that. Let's go to execution results, and let's take a look at some of the symbols and things that are in here. So the first thing you'll notice is right up top here it says package, package with errors. A package with errors is the name of my package, and then of course package is just the description of what we're looking at here. We're looking at a package. You'll see you have the little pluses here and minuses next to some of these nodes. You can actually collapse these down. This is a very short package, just a few a few tasks inside of this package, but lots of packages you'll have 50, 60 tasks inside here, so this can go down and down and down for a long ways. So it'd be helpful to come in here and take these little items and minimize these. So for example, this one's not really giving me any trouble, so I can go ahead and minimize that and get rid of it. This one's giving me no trouble, I can minimize that also. If I know my errors are occurring in just one section here, which my drop table task is the one that's causing me issues, I can collapse the rest of them to make it easier to get to that information. Now in this case here, I've got a couple of things going on. The first is the little red exclamation point inside of the white circle there, or a red circle around the white inside of it. Those are the ones that are important. Those are the ones you're looking for inside of SSIS. Now I know that these red X's here stand out really big, and you'd think those would be the ones you look for, but all those tell you is that the task failed. So this don't really give you good information here. But we're just going to look for the white one there. The one that's hardest to see, that's the one you need to find. Yeah. The next one here we have a warning also. That's our little yellow exclamation point there. Warnings are going to come up inside of your execution results also, and those warnings are not going to cause the package to fail most of the time. There are some warnings that can. And most of the time packages aren't going to fail due to warnings. And this is a warning you're going to see on just about all of your packages whenever you have a failure, and that is the maximum error count reached warning. The maximum error count is just saying you've got an error count level set on your package, and if you've exceeded that error count, most of the time your packages are going to be set to 1 for error count. That's the default, is 1. If you change that, which you can back in the package, go back to the control flow here. Let's go to properties of the package. And we'll scroll down and find maximum error count right there. That's the property for the package itself. You can change that to a higher number if you'd like, if you want to allow more errors to occur on your package. Most of the time, 99% of the time though, maximum error count is 1 is where you want to leave that. All right. So you can usually ignore this type of error message here, these warnings here. You'll see those lots. But these are the ones you want to pay attention to here, the ones with the white circle. So, whoops. Let me zoom back into that. So you can see this one says that failed to acquire a connection to, and then it gives the name of the connection. Now this name does not mean that's the name of the database. That is just the name of the connection in the package. So a lot of times you see people come in here and they'll say, well, it says it can't connect to AdventureWorks. And then they'll go look at their AdventureWorks back in Management Studio, make sure it's there. It's working great. I don't know why I can't connect to it. You need to go look at the connections themselves. So if it says it failed to acquire a connection with that connection, then we'll go back to a control flow, and then the first thing I'll do is I'll double click on this connection to bring it up and take a look at it. Localhost, AdventureWorks 2008, everything looks good. Let me hit test connection. Oh, no, I'm not connecting here. A login failed for my user. I cannot open the AdventureWorks database requested by the login. The login failed. Okay, so it says login failed, so I'm assuming that I don't have permissions to get to that database. So let's go take a look at that database, AdventureWorks 2008, and let's see if that's the issue. So go to databases, and you'll notice that in my databases, I don't have a database named AdventureWorks 2008. I have one named AdventureWorks 2008 R2, but I don't have one named just 2008 at the end of it. So even though it's telling me that the login failed, there is no database for me to log into. It's actually, the issue is that it's not the right database name here. And if I click on the drop-down menu here, you'll see that the AdventureWorks 2008 is there, but when I click on the drop-down menu, you'll see that I don't see it in my list here. So a lot of times if your database name is wrong or it's changed, you'll open that box and hit test connection, and it'll look like you're trying to connect to that database, but it's not actually the database itself. It's actually the fact that it's not the login itself. It's the database name is what's happened. So it's really easy to click on the drop-down menu there and select the proper database name. In this case, I'm going to select the AdventureWorks 2008 R2. And we'll test that. Yep, and it looks good. And we'll hit OK. Another thing while we're talking about connections is configuration files. You can right-click in the background here and go to Package Configurations, and you can enable these, and you can add package configuration files or configuration tables to your package. And this is definitely something I recommend you do. It allows you to control your packages dynamically from outside of them. That's a whole other session, though. I do a session on dynamically configuring packages, but we're not covering that today. But I want to mention this because this is something typical I see. They say, I've set this connection up, and I know it's right. It's a test connection. It works great in the package, but then when I run the package, it says it can't connect. Well, the configuration files or configuration table is passing in the connection information if you've mapped it over to that connection from in the package. So even though in your package you may have it set up correctly, at runtime when you run the package, it's not using what you typed in the package. It's using what's in the configuration file or the configuration table. So if you have configurations on your package, one way to eliminate those or eliminate the issue is to come into this package configuration organizer and simply uncheck this box here. If you uncheck the Enable Package Configurations, it turns off all your package configurations, and then you know that's not what's causing your problem, and you don't have to go adjust those configuration files. Now, you should have those configuration files set correctly in the first place. Oh. I hear, Tim, did you unmute? Or is that? Oh, sorry, heard some noise there for a second.
No, I think you're good, Mike. Sorry about the interruption.
Okay. So you can come in here and you can uncheck the Enable Package Configurations, and that'll disable those and allow you to test a package. So just because you come in here and you hit test connection on this one and it says test succeeded, you'll need to make sure the configuration files are set up correctly. A telltale sign that you have configurations on your package is this database name changes back. So if you come in here and you make a change to that name, you hit test connection, works great, you try to run a package and it fails, you go back, open the connections up again, and you see that that package or that connection name or database name has changed in some way, shape, or form, then either one or two things are happening. One, you're drinking on the job, or two, you've got configuration files on your package and it's passing that information in. And actually, there's a third thing also too. You can also have expressions on your connections also. So if you click on a connection and go over here to the properties of that connection, you'll see there's an expression node here. And move my GoToMeeting out of the way. And we go to expressions, and we can map expressions to all of these properties: the connection string, description, initial catalog, the name, the server name, or the username. It can all be held inside of an expression. So if you've got a database name that is somewhat dynamic, or a server name that's dynamic or something like that, and you use an expression to build that information, a lot of times you'll see this with flat file connections. Let's say you get a flat file every day in that has, say, the date appended to the end of it. Then you'll come in here and you'll create a connection string here. You'll have the name of the file with the get date afterwards in string format, so you can pull those files in individually. The problem is that when you open the connection manager, you hit test connection, everything looks like it works great. But then when you run the package, it fails, and that's due to the expression overriding whatever you put in there. So you want to make sure you watch that. Watch out for expressions and watch out for configurations when you're troubleshooting your package. Again, if you make a change and you come back into the connection and then it's changed back, then the telltale sign that that connection is either housed with an expression or a configuration file. All right, so let's go back to execution results here. So this is the one we're looking for here. So let's troubleshoot this package and let's see if we can get this thing working. First of all, let me tell you what I'm doing with it. First, I'm dropping a table here, and if you look inside here, it says if exist, drop this table. And it's just the name of a table here, a zip code lookup temp table. And if we go to my next one here, create table, this is actually creating a table here, and it's using a variable to call this SQL statement. And then we have a zip code lookup here. This is my data flow. So I'm pulling information from my original zip code table. I'm finding a specific state that I want, and then I'm sending that to a CSV file, and I'm sending it to a temporary table, a zip code lookup temp table. And then one last thing I'm doing here is I'm calling a rename function, again using a variable to do that. I'm renaming that table to be zip code lookup with the actual abbreviation of the state. So I'm basically dividing up my state information into different states here, state tables. So for example, if I put in Florida, it'll say, right click here and go to variables. And if I come in here and I put Florida in for one of my states, like so, then I'll get a table out that'll say zip code lookup, and instead of saying temp, it'll say zip code lookup Florida. And I'll have all my zip codes there for Florida. And I'll get a CSV file out too. All right, so now you know what it's doing. We know what our error message is here. It's saying it failed to acquire a connection. I believe I've fixed that now. I fixed the connection down here. So let's run this again. Let's see if we get past that. I execute this package. I'm getting another error message now. Create table, turning red on me. Let's go to the progress tab. All right. So this is our task create table. You see the drop table is completed. It's moved down. So this is kind of done in reverse order here. My create table is above my drop table. Again, if I had lots of tasks here, I can kind of collapse these, get rid of these, so I don't need to see those. Makes it a little easier to parse through the information. And now my error message says, executing the query Florida failed with the following error. I could not find store procedure Florida. Executing a query named Florida. I don't think I have a query named Florida out there. I'm not calling a store procedure that I recall. So let's go look at that in a second. Before I do, let's show you one more thing. At the end of an execute SQL task error message, you're always going to see a message like this. It'll say possible failure reasons, problem with the query, result set not set correctly, parameters not set correctly, and yada, yada, yada. There's a few other suggestions out there. These are just suggestions. They're not saying that the result set is bad. A lot of people come in here and they see problems with query, result set property not set correctly. Oh, it's my result set. And they go right back and start looking at the result set. These are just suggestions. If you look to the side there, it says possible failure reasons. So don't be confused by that. Let's go back to my control flow now. So I'm saying executing the query Florida failed. Let me stop from debugging. And let's see what I got going on here. So I have my connection correct. That's fine. Nothing worse. My source type is a variable. And my source variable, oh, I have it set to the state variable. That's the wrong variable. If you go take a look at my variables here, you see I have a state variable, and that just holds the name of the state, which is Florida. So I don't really need that. So I need the other one, my other variable, which is my create variable. There it is, SQL create table. Click OK. So that's the one I want. I'm going to show you that variable. There it is, SQL create table. This is actually done with an expression. I'm going to open up the expression editor. This is actually the expression editor that's built into BI Express, but it's you could do this with a regular built-in one. And you can see that what I'm doing here is I'm creating a table, and I've just added in a couple of variables here, and you see my zip code lookup temp table here. All right, so that should run now. Let's go back and let's try this one more time. Let's execute that package and see if we get any more error messages. All right, guys, so I got past the first two tables, but now I'm getting stuck on my third one, and this is my data flow. So let's take a look at the data flow here. And it's failing right here at the source. So I'm not even getting to any of my tasks at all. I'm not pulling any data at all. Let's go to the Progress tab. And again, this is the steps you want to go through. If you see a data flow has got an error message like this, I would not jump directly to the Progress tab. You want to go inside the data flow first, by double-clicking on it, and figure out where it failed at, because it may have made it halfway down or something like that. It will give you a better understanding of what's going on. So if you're actually pulling data, if it does pull a few rows, then you know your connection's good, at least. Let's go to Progress here. All right, so now my create tables is fine now. My drop tables is fine. And there's my error message right there. All right, so the first error we're getting, let me highlight these. First one is SSIS error code. OLEDB error has occurred. Error code doesn't really tell me much at all. The next one, opening a row set for, and that connection failed. Check that the object exists. Now that's what I needed right there. I need to check to see if that object exists in the database. So there's my problem right there. It's telling me that that object doesn't exist. The next one there is our component original zip code table failed validation and return validation status of is broken. So it's unable to validate that connection. I'm unable to find that connection. Down below that, you'll see a couple more that come up here. One or more components failed. There were errors during the task. Not real helpful. Doesn't give you a whole lot of information. A lot of times also, you'll see an error message in here, and then it'll say something at the very end like, there may be a message before this that has more information. You want to look at the error message right before that. That's usually where you're going to have that information. I find that most of the time, the error message in the middle, if it's between 2 or 3 different ones, the ones that's in the middle is going to give you the information, and this is what I wanted. Check that that object exists in the database. So I'm having a problem with my connection here. Let's go back into the data flow now, and let's open up my original zip code table. Let's go to my, okay, so it says a localhost, table review, zip code lookup table. Go to my columns. Ooh, now we have a problem here. Check that the object exists in the database. All right, so that's the issue. Let me just click on the drop-down menu here. And I don't have the zip code lookup table in here. That would be the problem. I don't have a zip code lookup. So, okay, so I'm gonna select zip code lookup temp table, which is actually wrong. I need the zip code lookup table, but I deleted that one, and I wasn't supposed to do that. So, normally I would select the zip code lookup table here, which is I wanted them. I'll go ahead and select the temp one just for grins right now. All right, and you notice when I make a change here, what happens? I get a bunch of little red X's here. And again, I don't like slideshows, but let's go back to the slide just so I can go to the next one here. So data flow errors, source changes, and data viewers. So if you make a change to a source, and there you go, my funny pictures. So if you make a change to a source in your data flow, like I just did, you'll notice I get a bunch of little red X's going all down the line there. This is getting better because in Denali, the new SQL Server coming out, they're getting better with this. They're actually going to if you make a change, you're going to pass that information down to the next components to stop this issue. But this is actually a pain in 2005 and 2008 right now. If you make a change to something upstream in the data flow, everything downstream starts changing and giving you issues, which is what we saw inside of my package just now. So let's go back to the package. All right, so column zip code cannot convert between Unicode and non-Unicode. So I changed my table to one that has Unicode instead of non-Unicode, and I'm getting issues now. Next item down here, this is input column state abbreviation has a lineage ID of yada yada. It was not in the data flow, so my lineage ID of that doesn't exist now. And then the same thing down here. That lineage doesn't exist, and it doesn't exist. So I made a change to my table here. I even got an error message here on my connection. And that's because when I made the change, my columns here are the same as the table I had before. And because the columns match what I had before, the data flow doesn't know that it needs to refresh the metadata in this source. Again, this is getting better in the newest version of SQL Server, but right now, if you make a change and the table happens to match exactly, which is what I did here, it doesn't refresh the metadata. So what we have to do is we have to do a little trickery here, select some other table that has a completely different set of metadata, like my product table here. Go back into it, and now I can select that zip code temp table my error message goes away off my source. So my source is okay now. But I still got some issues down below. So let's go to the next one here. Let's double click on my conditional split. This is a very common box that you'll see pop up when you open up a conditional split statement or any other type of task that has lineage ID issues. Let's take a look at these. So it's basically telling us that we have some invalid column references. It's referring to columns that don't exist. Even though the column names match exactly, if the metadata is changed in the background, or if you just recreate your source like I just did here, it gets a new lineage ID. So in the background, behind all of these columns that are passing through, there's a lineage ID for every column. It's just given some sort of random number, and then it's passed down to each task, and it uses that number to know which columns which in subsequent tasks. Well, if you make a change upstream and you get a whole new source like what I just did now, it gets new lineage IDs. So even though the column names match, it says, no, 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 we're not going to assume those are the same. We're going to make you map those down here now. So you have a couple of choices when you do this. And just zoom in here. And if you look in the little box here from the drop-down menu, we can either leave it as an invalid column reference, which you don't want to do, or we can delete that invalid column reference if it's one that we know doesn't exist anymore, or we can map it to some other item. So you see you have 3 other columns there, and I can say, oh, it needs to be mapped to this one. If it's a new column and you just want to map it to one that exists, great. Just click on the drop-down menu and map it to that new column. If it's one that you've removed, in this case all of mine have been removed because I've got all new columns now, then I'm going to go ahead and just say delete as the invalid column reference. So I'm going to go ahead and click on the drop-down menu here and say delete, and delete, and delete, and then we'll click on OK. And let's go ahead and open that back up again. All right, so now I'm still getting an error message here. If I open my columns, you'll see that my column error now, I get state abbreviation is equal to @user_state. That's the correct state output for my conditional split. But I see I don't have anything up here named state abbreviation. I just have one called state. And you can put your mouse over top of it when it turns red like this, and it gives you an error message. And these error messages are usually pretty good about telling you exactly what the problem is. So the input column here says was not found. Input column specified was not found. And that's exactly what the problem is. I don't have one called state ABR. A lot of times I see, again, this is a very common thing, I see people get red inside of here and immediately start making changes and start trying to figure out why it's not working. Put your mouse over this and get your little tooltip up here and read these error messages. They will help you and save you time in trying to debug these issues. Because believe it or not, SSIS does give pretty good error messages inside of here for these tooltips. All right, so my state abbreviation is wrong, so let's get rid of that. And I'm going to drag down my state and drop it in there. And now it's good to go. Click on OK. My multicast is fine now. My zip code here, I got a warning on this one. And you'll see it says the external columns for component zip code or temp are out of sync with the data. So let's open that up and see what it means. If I go to my mappings now, it's because it changed from state abbreviation to state, they're not mapped anymore. So it's out of sync here. I need to pull over my state and drop it inside of there. And now that warning's gone. I've got no warning at all on my zip code destination for the CSV. Let's open it up, make sure that's still okay. Go to mappings. Look at that. It lost that state mapping there because it changed from state abbreviation to state, and because of that, it lost the mapping. But I didn't get any kind of error message at all. No red X, no anything at all. It just said, nope, everything's good to go. And so my flat file that I would have pulled out of that would have had missing information in it. So just because it doesn't have a red X on it, you want to check those mappings, especially if you make a change upstream. If you make a change upstream, I like to go through and just double-click on each one of my tasks afterwards and open them up and make sure that everything is as it's designed. Like I said, hopefully this will be much better than the newest one. I've messed around with Knowledge so far, and it seems to be much better. If you make a change, it does map those down. But that opens it up to new problems, though. If you make a change and you create a new column and you don't want it to map down, now you've got to go through and not map those. So it could cause more issues, but I think it's going to save a lot of headaches when it comes to maintenance on packages. All right, so let's go back to control flow now, and let's try running this one more time, and let's see if we get any more error messages. Execute it. One more error. Now we're getting a rename. My rename table is causing an error. So let's go to execution results, And let's see here. All that load temp table stuff there, all my data flow, that's all good. So I can go ahead and collapse that, get rid of that. And let's see, there's my error message right there. Executing the query rename, failed with the following error, could not find stored procedure rename. I don't think I have a stored procedure name rename. I thought I had that set up as an expression. So let's go back here, and let's go to variables. And there's my rename one right there. And let's look at the properties of this variable. And if you look at the properties of my rename variable here, you'll see that I have an expression on that right there. And let's open up that expression. Let's evaluate it. And that looks good. It's calling SP rename, and it's renaming the zip code lookup table to zip code lookup Florida, which is what I wanted. But why isn't it working? It should be working. That's the exact one. If I copy and paste this out and run it in Manage Studio, it works great. So why is it not working? But this is a little tricky one here. If you look right above my expression here, there's an option here that says Evaluate as Expression, and it's set to false. So it's telling me that do not evaluate the expression. I want you to use whatever's in the variable already. So that error message I got earlier said it can't find the stored procedure called rename. And if you look right here, I've got the value of rename inside of there. I just typed that in so it would have some sort of value in there. And that tells me that it's using the value here. It's not using my expression. Also, if you have a tool like BI Express, you get these little red circles over here that tell you whether the expression is turned on or not. And I can see there's not one here, so I know I need to turn expressions on for that. So I need to go over here and set this to true. And now I'll get a expression out of that. Let's try running this one more time. Oh, still getting an error message. Let's go back to progress now. And let's see what's going on here. The following query is rename lookup failed with the following error message. The new name, zip code Florida, is already in use as an object name. All right, so that means my zip code lookup Florida table already exists. That's my problem. So let's go ahead and drop that table. That one's a pretty easy one there. So we can just go over here and we'll just drop that. I'll cheat and use a little scripter here. All right, so that one's gone. Let's refresh and make sure. That one's gone. So sometimes the error messages occur, and it's not something you can fix inside the package itself. It's something inside of your database. One more time now, let's run it, and look at that, all green, and no error messages inside of my progress tab. So we had to go through quite a few steps there to actually troubleshoot this and fix this package, but hopefully you can see the steps that I'm going through here. You can see that if I get an issue, I go to execution results right away, or I go to progress tab if I'm still debugging. I come back and forth and I read those error messages and I try to find the ones, the little white circles that tell me what's going on there. All right, let's go back to my oh-so-cool slideshow. All right, script errors. So there's one other thing we'll talk about with the errors inside our package, and that is script errors. Scripting is something that you don't do a whole lot of in SSIS using script tasks like VB and .NET because you have a lot of tasks, a lot of native tasks built into SSIS that can do the work for you. But if you do find yourself having to do some sort of scripting, writing VB or C#, if you're using 2005, you're stuck with just VB. If you use 2008, you can use a VB or C#. So let's go take a look at scripting errors here. Let's close this package up here, and we'll go script issues. I have a script task right here, and I believe I already have something in here. Yes, I do. All right, so here's what I'm going to do. I have a package here, and I've got a variable on it, and the name of the variable is X. I just named it X for ease of use here, and the value of that variable is test. So we'll close that up. I'm going to go into my script task here, go to Edit Script. And all I want to do is just change the value of this variable. This is how you call a variable inside of a script task, dts.variables, and then you put the name of the variable in quotes there, dot value, and I'm going to set the value equal to 0. And let's see what kind of error messages we get when I try to run this. All I'm doing is changing the value of the variable. And of course, it turns red on me. Let's go to the Progress tab, and here is the error message. I'm going to copy out that message text. And I'm going to open up Notepad and paste it inside of there. Ooh, that's an error message right there. Let's take a look at what's going on here. All right, so system reflection, target location, exception's been thrown. SQL Server DTS runtime, doesn't tell me anything, and then there it is. Okay, the element cannot be found in a collection. All right, so this is something very common you'll see when you're running script task inside of an SSIS package. The element cannot be found in a collection. So what it's doing is trying to pull information from the package, in this case a variable. And if it can't find that information in the variable, unfortunately the .NET language doesn't give you a real good error message here because it's .NET. It's not just SSIS language. It's actually full .NET language. And so an element and a collection, these are common terms in .NET, and it's saying it can't find that information basically. So something's missing in the package. What's missing? Well, in this case here, I know it's a variable because my variable is the only thing I'm calling. But if you have a script task that has hundreds of things inside, hundreds of functions going on, it can be difficult to figure out what's missing there. 99% of the time, I find it's the variables that are missing. So let's go back, and I'll show you also a way to kind of debug and walk through these two. Let's go back. Let's see what my problem is here. So I have edit script. I say variable G0x is equal to 0. That looks fine right there. And let's go back to my variables. The variable's name is x. What's my problem here? Let's go back to the script task. I did not include the variable here in the read only and read write. So this is a very common issue I see. People forgetting to put the variables inside of here. So you got to make sure you put your variables in here. And I'm doing a read write to that variable. I'm actually changing the value, so I need to make sure it's set inside the read write, not just a read. So let's go ahead and check that. There it is, user X, and there it is, user X. And then what I like to do is I like to copy the value of the variables. If I have like 20 variables in here, great. I'll just hit Control A and select out that entire row and copy it. And when I go into Edit Script now, I can paste those variables in right there on my comments. I like to paste them in right here, just so I have a list of all my variables. And that way I know that I'm not making a typo. I'm not missing anything here because this value of this variable here is case sensitive, and of course, it has to be spelled correctly. So let's go ahead and save that, close it up, let's run this again. Let's see what error message we get now. And let's go to progress, and we get this same error message. The element cannot be found in the collection. And some of you may have noticed it already. If you go back in here, you'll see that my variable is a capital X, and my variable I put in here was a lowercase. So you want to go ahead and put in the uppercase there. You can actually put in the user namespace in there if you want to, so I can copy that. And this is what I usually do is I paste it in just like that. You don't have to have the namespace in there. You can if you want to. The namespace is user. The other one is system, which are the ones that are built in. I've really never seen a big issue or need to create new namespaces. I always use the user one. All right, let's try this one more time. Save that. Go back to our package, and let's see if we get another error message now. Still another error message. Go back to progress. Oh, we got a new one now. Let me copy this out, and let's go ahead and delete that and paste this one in. All right, session's been thrown, yada yada, DTS runtime, and now it says the type of the value being assigned to the variable X differs from the current variable type. All right, so the type of value being assigned is wrong, basically what it's saying here. So I know these error messages look a little confusing, especially with all the system.reflection. If you don't do a lot of .NET coding, all this looks like Greek to you here. But if you get past right here where it says DTS runtime exception, that is where you'll find your error message from your script task. And that's where it says the type of the value being assigned to the variable is wrong. So let's go back to my package again. Let's see what I'm doing here. Go to variables. There we go. So I've got the script task here, and I've got it set to a string value. That should have been a string 0 going into that, not a 0. So let's go to my edit script here, and then you put double quotes around my string here. Save that, close it up, do this one more time, execute the package, and now it runs great. So I'm getting no error messages, but is the value of my variable, is it actually changing? Well, there's a way you can debug packages. If you go up here to the debug menu and go to Windows, you see that all you have is breakpoints. And that's because I'm not in debug mode. But if I get into a debug mode, and what I mean by that is if I go to the package, I'm going to right-click on the task, go to Edit Breakpoints, and I'm going to say put a breakpoint on this on pre-execute. So it's going to stop this from running right at the pre-execute step. And I'm going to go ahead and execute the package now. you'll see that we're in pre-execute. You can tell because we've got a yellow arrow here pointing, indicating we're at a breakpoint. The task is still white, indicating that it has not started yet, so we're in pre-execute. And now if I go to debug and go to Windows, I get a couple of windows I can use. There's two windows up here that I like to use. One is the watch window and one is locals. Locals will pull up all your variables, including the system variables. Watch window will allow you to put in just individual variables. If you've got hundreds of variables in your package, you may want to go with the locals so you don't have to type them all in. If you've got just one or two you want to watch, then you use the watch window. I'll show you both. So let's go to debug, Windows, locals. Let's watch the local window down here at the bottom. There it is. We'll expand that out. Let me pull it up just a little bit here so you can see this. And we need to scroll down and find that variable X. There it is at the very bottom. And you see the value of that variable is test. All right, so let's continue on. If I put my mouse over top of the green arrow, usually that's the debug arrow, but in this case now it's the continue arrow because we're at a breakpoint. So let's hit continue now. And go to my locals, and my locals are gone now. I've gotten to the end of the package now, and my locals window clears out. So I didn't get a chance to see the value of the variable there. And this is an issue that does occur. So if you really want to be able to see the value of the variable, I need to go back to my edit breakpoints, and then I need to put a breakpoint on post execute here. And this should stop the package from running at two different places, before and after the script task. Let's go back to this again. There's my locals. The value says test. Let's hit continue. And go back to locals. And now you see the value of X is now 0. So it has changed. And you can see that the items that are in red here indicate that there's a change that's occurred to those items. So of course the execution duration changed because I hit continue and it continued on. And then the value of my variable changed to 0. And the other way to watch your variables is that watch window. So let's go ahead and execute the package. You have to be in debug mode again. So debug, Windows, watch. Go to my watch window, and here I can type in the value, the name of the variable. It is case sensitive. You don't have to put the user : : in front of it. You can type in just the name, and then what I did here, hit X or capital X, enter, and there's test right there. And so now I'm seeing just the value of the variable that I want to see, not all the variables. So I can hit continue, go back to watch, and now you can see that the value of my variable is now 0. So watch windows, debug window, locals window, and the breakpoints are a great feature to use inside of SSIS to help you debug your packages here. Let's go ahead and I'm going to go to debug and delete all breakpoints right here. You want to make sure you do that before you send your packages out to production. They won't stop running in production. The DT-exec tool is smart enough to know that it should ignore breakpoints and data viewers. But I want to go ahead and delete breakpoints off of there. Yep, delete all breakpoints. One more thing with script task. If you've got lots and lots of tasks going on here, it's very hard to debug these. There's no real debug mode like you have in like a .NET program. But what I like to do is put in message boxes in there. I'm using VB, so you just do MSG, BOX, and then I'll put in the value of that variable right here. Just like that. And this will cause a message box to pop up to show me the value of the variable. Again, make sure you remove these before you go to production. These will cause your package to fail in production. So let's save that. And let's run this again. And I should get a pop-up now showing me the value. And there we go. So now I can see the value of the variable is 0. And I didn't have to use debug windows or the locals window or anything like that, or breakpoints. All right. And I just realized I skipped over something in the data flow I wanted to show you. Let's go back to my data flow real quick. So one of the main tools inside our data flow for debugging is the data viewer. So on these little green lines, these data flow lines right here, we can watch the data as it's going through each one of these lines and see what transformations are occurring. So I can right-click on this line, click on Data Viewer, and click on Add. Now there's different types of data viewers. There's the grid one, which is just a table, shows you the data, histogram, and a scatter plot, and a column chart. 99.9% of the time, you're going to use a grid. You just want to actually see the data, see what's going on with it. You can go to the grid tab, and you can remove or add columns if you want. And now when we run the package, oops, let's run this package. I don't think I have any data in that table, actually. Yeah, I have no data in the table, so I got no rows coming through. But if I did, the data view would pop up here, and I'd see some sort of data. Let's do that real quick just so you can see what a data viewer looks like here. So I'm just going to drag in a source. I'm just going to pick a table, and I'm going to pick a destination of just a multicast, and we'll put in a data viewer here and throw some data in it. And you can execute just the data flow too by right-clicking and go to Execute Task. Right-click somewhere in the background. There we go. And there's my window. And I can see the data. And you can see how many rows are being displayed. About 9,500 rows are being displayed. You hit the green arrow here to continue. And there's the next 9,557 rows. And you continue on. So you're going to see approximately 10,000 rows in each data viewer. That's because it loads these rows up into memory, and that's the size of the memory buffer. It's your size of your rows or the number of rows you get is going to vary based on how many metadata or what you have in your columns. If you have, varchar 500 in all your columns, you're going to get a lot less because it can't hold up much of memory. If they're all small ints, then you'll get a lot more memory. All right, let's go back to my slideshow, make sure I'm not missing anything here. Script errors, message box. All right, I don't know if we have time to cover everything here. Let's see, it's 11:50. Tim, you want me to go all the way to the hour or stop now?
Well, it's completely up to you, Mike. I know we got started a little bit late. That was an interesting slide you just put up there quickly. I don't even want to ask what the content is behind it. But you do have a number of questions if you want to open up a Q&A.
It's up to me. It's up to you. I can stay as long as you need me to. So
okay.
I can finish up and just talk about auditing for a second. So we'll do that.
All right.
And so I can explain that slide. Yeah, I kind of jumped the gun there and ruined the surprise, but oh well. So auditing. So auditing event handlers. What should you do with your packages? So one of the things that when it comes to troubleshooting is, when you're in debug mode, when you're in bids, it's pretty easy to troubleshoot. You have lots of tools. You have data viewers. You have all the tools are shown here, the breakpoints, putting message boxes, pop-ups, the local window, the watch window, lots of tools built in here, and lots of good error messages. The problem is when you move that out to production now and it's on your server running, you don't have those tools. You don't have those things on your screen where you can look at and watch and see what's happening with the package. And so you have to have some sort of auditing set up on your package. Now there is logging that you can turn on your package, but if anybody here has used logging, you know that's painful to look at and go through all that log. It's a pain to look at tons and tons of text. But there are other ways and better ways to audit. Speaking of auditing, Brian and I will audit just about anywhere. All right, that was a joke. No, sorry, I jumped the gun on that one. All right. Let's move on here, and let's go take a look at some auditing.
And folks want you to keep going here. Mike, it looks like everybody's fired up. You're doing a good job, so keep on going as long as you want to.
Okay, good.
All right.
All right. So let's go back into the package I had earlier. Let's not use this one. Let's use that package with errors that I had. Here we go. So when a package has an error on it that occurs, and let me go ahead and cause an error like we had earlier. I'll just set this back to false here, so it'll cause an error when I call this to run now. There we go. So when a package has an error occur on it, one of the things that fires in the background is the event handler. And if we click on the event handler tab here, you'll see we have executables we can pick from, so that you can have individual event handlers on each task, or you can have event handlers on the package level. Most of the time I'm going to put them on the package level because I want to roll all my error messages up into one location. And then over to the right-hand side, you'll see the actual event handlers here. And you'll see that we have on error, on post-execute, on pre-execute, and on warning. Those are very popular ones right there. So let's talk about just the on error one for right now. So if an error occurs on that package, SSIS then tells the package, okay, you need to fire the on error event handler. If there's nothing in the on error event handler, or one isn't put on the package, then nothing occurs. But if we have one created on the package, which we can do by clicking right here, any task that's inside of this event handler will now fire. This is where you want to handle your error messages. This is where you want to handle your issues in your package. I'm going to go back to the control flow here, and I'm going to show you what not to do. So what I see sometimes is things like this. Error handling right here, and then I see this right here going on. I set this to failure, and then I do this, and set it to failure, And then I do this, and set it to failure, and so on and so forth. And the last one here, same thing. And I set this to failure. This is a no-no. Don't do this. Don't do that. No need to do that. One, it makes your control flow really, really hard to understand what's going on here. And two, you're making it more confusing for anybody who's coming along afterwards and try to deal with this package here. And every time you add a new task, you've got to draw these new lines and make sure it can handle that task also. So no need to do that. You can go right into your event handler here and drag that task and drop it into your event handler, and then you're basically doing the same thing at this point. Anytime an error occurs on the package, it's going to fire this script task right here. So number one thing is to eliminate all that error handling from your control flow. Move it to your event handlers. So how do you handle errors? So let's cancel this, and let's go and drag an X2 SQL task here. And let's just use AdventureWorks. And what would my SQL statement need to be here? Well, I would want to insert into a table some sort of information, right? Insert, and then whatever the names of those columns are, I'm going to put inside the table. And then we'll put some question marks in here for parameters. Now, for time constraints, I'm going to skip over that part. I'm going to go right to the expressions here. I'm sorry, parameters here. And go to variables here. And click on Add. And let's click on the drop-down menu here. And let's take a look at some of these variables. So these are my system variables here inside of my X2 SQL task that I can pull. So you can see I can pull the container start time. I can pull the creation date, the computer name. If I keep on going down here, there's an error code, which doesn't really give you much, but there's an error description right there. Now this error description is available inside of the on-error event handler. If you go to like the on-warning event handler, then you'll get a warning description, not an error description. So it's different ones for each different event handler. So I can grab that error description now, and I can write that to a table using this X2 SQL task. Now, if you know how to use parameters, which that's a little beyond the scope of this lesson today, but if you know how to use parameters now, I can just show error description right there. It's an input. It's not a long. It's going to be a varchar here. And my parameter value is going to be a, 0 actually, for the first one. This is my first parameter. And then inside of my insert statement here, I can have a table created somewhere. I'll say insert into, insert into what's the name of the, whatever the name of the table is, table name, and then error message. I can even do package name, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Whatever I want to call, columns I want to put on that table. And then afterwards, we simply put in question marks for all of those column names. So this would be parameter 0, parameter 1, and parameter 2. And I map those into my parameters here, and I can write any of those system variables over to my package. I can even write other variables, like I have variables in my package. Like, for example, that result set variable I had earlier, I can write that over there, and I can see that, oh, it's got the word rename in it instead of the full expression that I thought I put inside of there. So you can write anything you need over to another table using an X2 SQL task. Now, there's a lot that you could do here, a lot of information, tons and tons of system variables that you can grab and pull inside of there. Let me go back to the control flow. I'll go back to variables. And if you hit the little gray box here, it says show system variables. You see all the system variables here. They're the ones in gray. And you see there's a lot of them in here that you could grab and pull out. And so that could be a pretty big table. And you may want to break these up into multiple tables here. The good news is, with something like this, there are tools out there that are built that can do this for you automatically. For example, BI Express. It does have an auditing framework already built into it that you can add auditing to your package. We're not covering that today, but if you want to see a demo of that, let Tim know. We can set up a demo for you to show you that. But that will automatically add auditing to your package and write all that information to tables for you. There is a logging built into SSIS. I'll show you that as the last thing here. So there are different types of logging providers that you can pick inside of SSIS. Log into a text file, log in a SQL server. Those are very popular ones right there. These are great for logging everything that the package does. The problem is that they log everything that the package does, and I mean everything. There's a lot of stuff inside of here, so you get a lot of extra information, and they're all in text format. It's very hard to read. You don't get individual information like the system variables and things like that broken out. But if If you don't want to create your own auditing or you don't want to use something like VI Express, at least do something like this. At least do some sort of logging on your package so you have that information and you can see what's going on with your packages. Because when they fail out on the job file, the job's not going to give you a whole lot of good error messages. You're going to need some sort of logging somewhere on your package to track what's going on. All right, and I think that is about it. I think I was done with my slides. Yep, so that's about it. So this is my information here. This is my blog. I'm on bidn.com, and I'm also on Twitter, too, if you're a tweeter. You want to follow me. And a lot of this information, a lot of this troubleshooting stuff I've got on my blog already on BIDN, so you can look up that information there. And if you have any questions about anything I've shown today that I don't get to answer today, feel free to, or if you think of something tomorrow you want to ask me, then post it on the blogs over there, and I'll be more than happy to answer it over there. And
all right.
With that, I think it's time to take some questions.
All right, great. For those of you who want to hang around, we'll go through a quick Q&A here. Mike, you have about probably 10 or so questions. One quick question we do get often from many of you. Of course, we do record the session. It's recording right now. We will have it posted hopefully by today, no later than tomorrow, provided we don't have an issue with GoToWebinar and actually storing the video, the recording as we did at the end of December. So anyway, without further ado, this one goes out to Matt Mike, and he has a question. He often hits problems when trying to import date data. Any suggestions on how this should be done, e.g. import date, data date format equal, DD, MM, YYY, day, month, year, for example. Any suggestions around the date?
That's a very common issue.
Yeah.
That's a very common problem. You pull in a date in one format, and it's not, SSIS doesn't like that format or in the layout it's in. Really, the only thing you can really do, if your date is not in a format that's SSIS will actually treat as a date, you can pull it in as a string and then manipulate that string to be whatever format, move the date around, whatever format you need it to be in. I have a couple of blogs. Date formatting is actually such a big issue. I probably have 2, 3, or 4 blogs on BIDN talking about transforming dates. So if you go to BIDN, look at my blog, and look for date, you'll see several things I have written out there on how to transform those dates, like going from a DB2 to SQL and things like that.
All right, great. Yeah, hopefully that can help you out. By the way, Mike's also available directly there on BIDN as well. So any of you have a question after the webinar, you can get back to him. This one goes out to Gary. Mike, do you normally write a select statement for the source or take a complete table?
I'm sorry, it was breaking up there. What was that?
Oh, okay. Let me read it again, see if it makes sense. Do you normally write a select statement for the source or take a complete table?
Oh, okay. Great question. Yeah, let's go back to package here. And it's funny, I just did a performance tuning webinar yesterday for PASS, and for virtual PASS, and I've mentioned this. So yeah, so the choices are here when you're pulling in an LDB source. Should you use table or should you use SQL command or SQL command from variable or table from variable? If you're pulling in the entire table and you want the entire table, you can put the whole table in there. It's not going to really cause any issues until someone goes to that table and adds a new column to it. When someone adds a new column to that table, now you're going to get validation issues on your package. I always use SQL commands. Always use SQL commands because you never know who's going to go and mess with your tables and add new columns to them or whatnot. Also, you don't want to use tables when you don't need all the columns also, because if you look right here, let's say I just needed zip code and I uncheck state, uncheck city. I would get your zip code in my data flow, but I'm still pulling city and state across the network over to SSIS and then just dropping that data. So I'm moving data that I shouldn't be moving or don't need to move. So I definitely recommend using SQL commands. Also, where clauses are great too. When you create a SQL command here, put in a where clause so you eliminate it so you're not pulling rows that you don't need to pull over. Those things will help you a whole lot in performance on your package.
Okay, great. Hopefully that helps you out, Gary. Let's see here. This one goes out to, let's see, Key, it looks like. Do you need to remove the data viewer before the move to production, or does it slow things down?
It doesn't slow things down. It doesn't cause it to pop up in the background, anything like that. The DTExec tool, which actually runs the packages in production, is smart enough to know to ignore the data viewers, but it is still extra XML that's put inside your package that it has to parse through. So I would recommend removing them just for that.
Okay, hopefully that helps you out, Key. This one's out to Mike, and Mike had written a script task that does file maintenance and has failed in production due to permission issues. Does the account that executes the package need to have local server privileges?
If those files are on that local server, yes. So if you're writing or reading files somewhere, it's going to need permission to get to those files. Yes.
All right, and how would he add network service access to the server? Is that an easy thing for him to do, to get permissions?
Yeah, that's more of a DBA question than what I can really handle. I'm not the best DBA in the world. I'm getting better, but I would have to defer that to BIDN to the DBA section there, and Patrick or Adam or Brian or somebody will answer that there.
All right. Well, that's fair enough, Mike. And by the way, if anybody's a DBA out there and has an answer to that question, post it in your chat. We'll go ahead and share it with everybody. Let's see here. This one goes out to Srinath, and he always sees this error with a script component in DFT. As soon as when I close the edit script, I see this error. I would like to know why and what is causing this error in the title Microsoft Visual Studio. Okay. Mike, can you see the chat a little there, Mike? Because he actually cut and pasted the error in. Is it easy to see?
I see the chat, but I don't see anything in the chat. No.
He's at 11:51. He put it in there. We'll get back to your Srinath on that as well. I'll point it out to Mike after the webinar so that we can read off that for you. Here's one out to Cynthia. Why would a package run in SSIS but give a connection error when deployed to SQL Server? Any advice on that?
Okay, so it runs in bids, but then you deploy it out there, it's not working. 99% of the time, the issue I see there is going to be the execution of the package protection level is what caused the problem. Let me bring this up here.
Yeah, that broke up a little, Mike.
What causes the issue when you do that. Sorry about that. So this is normally what I see happen. When you have a package that is in bids, it works great, and then you move it over to production and then it won't run due to permissions, it's usually this issue here, the package protection level. So the default in SSIS, or in bids here, is encrypt sensitive with user key. The sensitive information in the package are going to be any connections that have a username and password in them. If you're using Windows authentication, which I would suggest trying to use that as much as possible, then you won't run into this problem. But if you can't, you have to put in a SQL Server login or something like that, then you want to set these to encrypt sensitive with a password, and then you can share that password with others and they can open it in bids. But when you move it over to your server, you can change it to server storage. So when you deploy the package, you want to select server storage as your encryption method, and that allows the server itself to handle the encryption for the package. The other two options you have there, encrypt all, and I would not suggest using those. If you encrypt all and you lose the password or user key, you lose the entire package. You have to start all over again. Unless you've got some sort of super secret, .NET code or something in there, I wouldn't recommend using those. The other one is don't save sensitive. That works well if you have configuration files or configuration tables passing in the information to the package. Don't save sensitive will handle that very well.
Okay, hopefully that helps you, Cynthia. Let's see, this one goes out to Rose. Rose created a package on her machine for her colleague. When she tries to run it on her own machine, she gets an error. What's the best way to troubleshoot this problem?
Yeah, same thing here. That's probably the same thing. It probably is, yeah.
Same way there.
Exactly what the error message is. So.
Okay. All right. Yeah. Hopefully that helped, Rose. Same answer we have to Cynthia. Let's see here. Let's go down the list here. This one goes out to Paris. Nice name, Paris. Let's see here. What about logging errors in a log file? Can you do that as well? Do you ever log errors into a log, Mike, and have any suggestions around that?
Yeah. Oops, sorry, not that one. I assume she's talking about the login is built in here. Just log into a text file.
Yeah, I imagine.
Or
that
are you talking about actually to the Windows event log? Yeah, like I said, you can turn these on and it'll log the information. The problem is it logs lots of information and multiple times. It'll log once for the task and then once for the package level, and so you get a lot of extra information in there. But yes, I've used the text file logging when I'm in a situation where I can't use a table or BI Express.
Okay.
I'm not sure if that answers your question or not. But.
All right. Hopefully that helped, Paris. If not, you can meet Mike on BIDN. And as a matter of fact, we have more questions than I know we're going to be able to get through in the next minute or so. So if we don't get to your question, again, you can chat with Mike on bidn.com and just look for Mike Davis. We'll go out to this one for Willard. This is probably our last question for the webinar. Willard has issues running SSIS package that he cannot run, as you showed in Biz, because of passwords to a database not being saved. Let's see here. I've got around this by running the package and integration packages. All right, so it sounds like he's already gotten around it. Willard, is there a second part to that question you'd like us to ask for Mike? And let's see here. This one goes out to Carlos. What happens if his package is running in 2005 version? Will it run in 2008 version as well? SQL Server.
Okay, well, if you have a package that's a 2005 package, and you open it in 2008 in bids, it'll ask you, would you like to upgrade this package to 2008? And you say yes, and it'll upgrade it to you to a 2008 package. I'm not sure if his question is, will a 2008 package run on a 2005 box? That answer is no, but if you have a 2008 package and you're trying to pull data from a 2005 box, that's fine.
Okay, I think he wants to know if you can have both the package run in both 2005 and 2008. Same package running on two separate servers. No. Okay.
No.
All right.
No, you'll have to upgrade and get an upgraded version of it for the 2008 one.
Okay. All right. And this one goes out to Willard again. You get back to us. I would like to run the package in bids, but not sure how with the password not being saved. I can get to Mike on BIDN. All right. Yeah, thanks, Willard. But, yeah, okay, so maybe we can help him right now, though, Mike. If he wants to run the package in bids, but he doesn't have the password saved, is there a workaround there?
When he says he doesn't have the password saved, I assume he means the password to the package. Like, it's encrypt sensitive with the password.
I would imagine.
No, if it's set to encrypt sensitive with a password, and you open the package, and of course you don't have the password, it's going to say invalid password. It'll still open the package, but it'll wipe out the sensitive information in the package. And you need to open those connections and re-enter that information.
All right, and it's not necessarily the encryption. This is about the password to the database. He doesn't have password to the database he's connecting to, but he can run it in bids. But when he goes to connect to the database, he doesn't have the password. Yeah.
Oh no, you gotta know the password to your database. Sorry.
You got to know. That's it. Hard stop on that one. You got to know the password to the database. Yeah.
You got to know your password, or you got to have Windows Authentication turned on, and allow you to connect and have credentials that can connect.
All right, hopefully that helped you, Willard. Thank you for getting back to us on the chat. And it's about 1:15, so we're going to wrap it up. I know Mike likes to get some lunch, and I've got to go meet Brian up here in the snowstorm in Massachusetts. So thank you again. Hey, we're back on Thursday at 11 o'clock. Again, this is going to be a regular occurrence, so hopefully you can set your calendar for every Tuesday and Thursday at 11 a.m. Every month. And if you have a chance, go to our site. You'll see the webinars posted all the way through March, and we're going to be updating those regularly as well. So thank you again, everybody, for coming. And Michael, thank you for spending time with us today.
Thank you.
Goodbye, everybody.